As we begin exploring the foundations of agritourism, it's important to understand that this field sits at the crossroads of agriculture, culture, and sustainable tourism. Agritourism is much more than simply visiting a farm. It represents a framework through which rural communities open their landscapes, knowledge systems, and everyday practices to visitors in ways that create mutual value. At its core, agritourism allows people to experience rural life firsthand, whether through farm activities, cultural traditions, or interactions with local families, while supporting economic development and environmental stewardship. This topic invites us to look closely at how agriculture and tourism intersect. On the agricultural side, we consider how farming practices, land management, and local food systems become part of the visitor experience. On the tourism side, we examine how authentic engagement, cultural learning, and sustainable travel practices reshape what it means to visit a rural destination. Agritourism succeeds when these two dimensions reinforce each other, transforming farms into living classrooms where visitors can learn about food production, ecological balance, and rural heritage. Another foundational aspect of agritourism is the role it plays in rural development. For many communities, it provides a way to diversify income, reduce vulnerability to agricultural uncertainties, and create new opportunities without abandoning traditional livelihoods. But beyond economics, agritourism strengthens social cohesion by encouraging community participation and cultural exchange. It also promotes environmental awareness by showcasing sustainable farming techniques and responsible land stewardship. Throughout this topic, we will explore how agritourism is built on three key pillars: agricultural authenticity, cultural identity, and sustainability. Understanding how these elements interact gives us a clearer picture of why agritourism has emerged as a powerful tool for revitalizing rural areas across the world. It shows us that rural territories are not static landscapes, but dynamic spaces where tradition and innovation can meet in ways that benefit both visitors and local communities. Agritourism is best understood as the intentional integration of agricultural activities with tourism-oriented experiences. Its aim is to create meaningful interactions between visitors and rural environments, local cultures, and farming practices. Unlike conventional tourism, which often focuses on attractions designed specifically for entertainment, agritourism draws its value from the everyday reality of agricultural landscapes and the lifestyles rooted within them. What makes agritourism unique is the way it blends three key dimensions. The first is agricultural activity, where visitors directly engage with farming processes. This may include harvesting crops, caring for animals, learning about organic cultivation, or observing traditional land management practices. These activities allow visitors to appreciate the knowledge, labor, and ecological awareness involved in food production. The second dimension is cultural exchange. Agritourism provides opportunities for travelers to connect with rural traditions and crafts. Everything from local cooking techniques and handicrafts to folklore, seasonal rituals, and heritage celebrations. These interactions help preserve cultural identity while creating authentic, memorable experiences for visitors. The third dimension is environmental stewardship. Because agritourism is grounded in the agricultural landscape, it naturally overlaps with efforts to promote sustainability. Many agritourism initiatives highlight ecological farming methods, conservation practices, and regenerative approaches that protect soil, water, and biodiversity. Visitors not only enjoy rural spaces, but also learn how thoughtful land use contributes to long-term environmental health. Importantly, agritourism encompasses a much wider range of activities than traditional on-farm tours. It includes farm stays, educational workshops, food tasting events built around local produce, structured harvest festivals, and community heritage projects. This expands the experience from simple observation to full participation in rural life. Around the world, different countries have adapted agritourism to fit their cultural traditions, environmental conditions, and economic priorities. These global variations help us understand agritourism as a flexible, context-sensitive model rather than a single formula. The first example comes from Japan, where agritourism has been closely tied to reviving rural communities facing depopulation. Farm stay programs allow visitors, often urban residents, to live temporarily in remote villages, participating in daily activities such as rice planting, harvesting, or traditional cooking. This approach does more than provide a tourist experience. It helps preserve agricultural knowledge, keeps rural traditions alive, and supports local economies that might otherwise decline. In Japan, agritourism becomes a bridge connecting modern urban society with deeply rooted rural heritage. The second example is Costa Rica, where agritourism is strongly shaped by the country's well-known commitment to environmental conservation. Here, eco-agritourism integrates agriculture with biodiversity protection. Visitors may take part in activities around coffee or cacao production, explore agroforestry systems, or learn about wildlife conservation. This model blends environmental stewardship with economic sustainability, showing how agritourism can support both local livelihoods and ecological preservation. In Costa Rica, the landscape itself becomes a living classroom where agriculture and conservation coexist. The third example highlights Nepal, where agritourism often emerges in areas connected to forest conservation initiatives. Homestays provide guests with the opportunity to observe and participate in agricultural routines, while their tourism fees help fund community-led conservation projects. This creates a cycle in which tourism supports the protection of natural resources, and protected landscapes enhance the cultural and agricultural experience for visitors. In Nepal, agritourism demonstrates how community participation and environmental protection can work together to create sustainable rural development. Taken together, these examples illustrate how adaptable agritourism truly is. Whether its purpose is cultural preservation, environmental conservation, or community empowerment, the model can be shaped to fit the specific needs and strengths of different rural contexts. Understanding these global variations helps us appreciate the diversity of agritourism and its potential to contribute to sustainable development across many different parts of the world. Farms operating within an agritourism model carry a dual responsibility. On one hand, they must continue to function as productive agricultural enterprises, growing crops, managing livestock, and sustaining the rural livelihoods that depend on these activities. On the other hand, they are expected to provide informative, engaging, and enjoyable experiences for visitors who want to learn about agriculture in an authentic and responsible way. To manage this balance, agritourism sites often adopt sustainable farming practices that align with the expectations of visitors who increasingly value responsible consumption. These may include organic cultivation methods, efficient water management, soil conservation, and eco-friendly pest control. By demonstrating these practices in action, farms help educate visitors about the importance of sustainability while still ensuring that productivity is not compromised. In this way, tourism and agriculture reinforce each other instead of competing. Visitor interaction also becomes part of a broader sustainability narrative. When guests participate in activities like harvesting, planting, or observing daily farm routines, they gain a deeper appreciation for the effort and knowledge involved in food production. This creates an experiential connection that benefits both the visitors and the local community. For the community, tourism provides additional income and visibility. For visitors, it offers insight into agricultural systems and the realities of rural life. What is important to highlight is that agricultural productivity remains central. Agritourism is not meant to replace farming, but to complement it. If tourism activities were to disrupt planting schedules, reduce yields, or create logistical obstacles, the core purpose of the farm would be undermined. Successful agritourism operations therefore design their visitor activities around agricultural cycles rather than the other way around. This thoughtful coordination ensures that the integrity of the farm's work is preserved. Ultimately, balancing productivity and experience is about integrating tourism into the rhythm of agricultural life in a way that benefits both sides. By doing so, agritourism becomes a sustainable model that supports economic viability, environmental responsibility, and public understanding of agriculture. This balance is essential for ensuring that agritourism can thrive long-term without sacrificing the agricultural foundations on which it depends. Agritourism initiatives are most successful when they are shaped, led, and supported by the people who live in the rural areas where these activities take place. Instead of being externally imposed or designed by outside organizations, effective agritourism emerges from within the community itself. This ensures that tourism aligns with local values, traditions, and capacities, and that it generates benefits that are truly meaningful for residents. One key aspect of this community-centered approach is participatory planning. Community members are actively involved in deciding what types of tourism activities to offer, how they should be organized, and which cultural elements should be shared with visitors. Their local knowledge of crops, landscapes, history, and traditions becomes the foundation for building authentic and engaging experiences. Participatory planning not only strengthens the quality of agritourism offerings, but also empowers residents by giving them ownership over the development process. Another important dimension is ensuring inclusive benefits. Agritourism has the potential to create economic opportunities for groups that may have been historically underrepresented or marginalized in rural economies. In particular, women and young people. Through training programs, skill-building activities, and direct involvement in tourism services, agritourism can open pathways for broader community participation. When more residents share in the benefits, the initiative becomes more equitable and socially sustainable. The slide also emphasizes cultural authenticity. Communities play a decisive role in determining how their cultural practices, agricultural routines, and local identity are represented to visitors. By controlling the narrative, they ensure that experiences remain true to who they are, rather than becoming generic tourist attractions. This protects traditional knowledge and strengthens cultural pride, while also giving visitors a more genuine understanding of rural life. Overall, placing the community at the center of agritourism ensures that development is both sustainable and respectful. It encourages collaboration, reinforces cultural identity, and allows tourism to grow in ways that genuinely reflect the character of the place. When residents feel included, valued, and directly involved, agritourism becomes a tool for empowerment rather than exploitation. This community-driven model is essential for building agritourism initiatives that are not only economically viable but also socially meaningful and culturally authentic. Agritourism did not begin as a formal industry. Instead, it developed gradually as communities adapted their agricultural livelihoods to new social and economic opportunities. By understanding this evolution, from agrarian foundations to professionalized tourism, we gain insight into why agritourism remains so closely tied to rural identity and community life. The first stage is the agrarian foundation. For centuries, agriculture was the defining backbone of rural societies. It shaped social structures, cultural traditions, and the physical layout of villages and farms. During peak agricultural seasons, such as harvest time, it was common for outsiders, relatives, neighbors, or curious visitors to spend time on farms, helping with labor, or simply observing daily routines. These early interactions were informal but mark the beginning of rural openness to outside engagement. Next, we see economic diversification. As rural economies evolved and communities sought additional income sources, small farms began opening their doors more intentionally to paying visitors. Guest rooms were prepared for travelers. Traditional meals made with farm-grown produce were served, and agricultural activities were shared with outsiders. Importantly, this diversification happened without replacing core farming activities. Agriculture remained central, but tourism offered a supplemental income that helped stabilize rural livelihoods. The third stage is organic evolution. Many early forms of agritourism arose not from commercial intent, but from genuine interest among visitors in rural life. People wanted to learn about farming techniques, experience local customs, participate in markets, or reconnect with relatives in rural areas. These exchanges were rooted in curiosity, cultural connection, and a desire to understand different ways of life. Over time, these informal encounters laid the groundwork for more structured tourism experiences. Finally, we reach formal integration. As tourism grew and rural areas recognized its potential, agritourism became more organized and professionally managed. This shift involved creating structured visitor experiences, improving infrastructure, and developing service-oriented practices while still maintaining the agricultural basis of operations. Rural economies began integrating tourism into their development strategies, combining agricultural production with visitor engagement to create a more sustainable livelihood model. In the early stages of agritourism, visitors typically engage from a distance. They observed farming routines, watched crops being harvested, or viewed livestock without necessarily participating in the process. While this form of tourism provided insight into rural life, it was largely passive and offered limited emotional or educational impact. Over time, however, both visitor expectations and community strategies shifted. Travelers became increasingly interested in authentic, immersive experiences that allowed them to actively engage with rural environments. At the same time, rural hosts began recognizing the value of involvement-based activities, not only because they create stronger visitor connections, but also because they offer more opportunities to showcase local knowledge and traditions. This gave rise to the transition toward experiential tourism. Experiential tourism unfolds along a progression of engagement. At the most basic level, we still find passive observation, where tourists watch agricultural activities from a distance. This serves as an introduction, but does not require interaction. Next, we have guided experiences, which add structure and interpretation. These tours involve expert narration, explanations of farming techniques, and opportunities for visitors to ask questions. Guided experiences help contextualize rural life and deepen visitor understanding. The third level introduces hands-on activities where visitors directly participate in agricultural tasks. This might include planting seedlings, harvesting vegetables, feeding animals, preparing traditional foods, or learning specific cultivation techniques. Hands-on participation strengthens the learning experience because visitors feel the physical and mental effort that goes into farming. Finally, the highest level of engagement is immersive learning. Here, visitors not only participate in tasks, but also connect with cultural practices, such as seasonal rituals, cooking traditions, or heritage crafts. Immersive learning fosters meaningful cultural exchange and helps visitors develop a deeper appreciation for rural lifestyles. This transition toward participation and immersion reflects broader trends in tourism. People increasingly seek memorable, interactive experiences rather than passive sightseeing. They want to learn, engage, and feel connected to the places they visit. For rural communities, this shift creates opportunities to present their traditions in dynamic ways while maintaining authenticity. As visitor expectations evolve, rural destinations increasingly rely on hands-on activities that allow guests to engage directly with agricultural processes. Instead of merely observing farming from a distance, visitors now handle tools, harvest crops, prepare food, and take part in the transformation of raw products. These active experiences heighten sensory involvement and create lasting memories, which in turn increase the perceived value of the visit. One example presented is coffee tourism, particularly in places like Dakhla. Here, visitors do much more than drink coffee. They participate in roasting beans, grinding them, and learning traditional brewing methods alongside local farmers. This transforms coffee from a simple beverage into an experiential souvenir, carrying with it a personal sense of craftsmanship and connection to the land. The act of making coffee becomes both educational and emotionally meaningful. Another activity featured is planting workshops. Even seemingly simple tasks, such as planting seedlings, hold symbolic importance for visitors. These workshops help people understand land stewardship, agricultural cycles, and the long-term commitment required to sustain productive landscapes. The tactile experience of working with soil and seeds builds appreciation for the work farmers do every day and helps visitors feel directly connected to rural ecosystems. The slide also emphasizes culinary experiences. Workshops that teach regional cooking techniques using farm-grown ingredients offer value-added services that extend far beyond basic accommodations. Visitors learn how to prepare traditional dishes, gaining cultural insight while also supporting local food systems. These culinary activities diversify income streams for rural households and reflect the growing global interest in food-based tourism. The participatory orientation of these experiences blurs the traditional boundaries between host and guest. Farmers become guides, storytellers, and educators, interpreting agricultural practices and explaining their cultural significance. The narratives shared during these activities resonate just as strongly, sometimes even more strongly, than the physical labor itself. Visitors walk away not only with new skills, but also with a deeper emotional connection to rural life. Agritourism is not only an economic activity or a cultural exchange model, it is also a pathway that advances multiple dimensions of sustainable development simultaneously. Because agritourism connects livelihoods, community participation, and environmental stewardship, it fits directly within the broader global agenda aimed at creating more equitable, resilient, and sustainable rural societies. One of the clearest areas of alignment is SDG 1, no poverty. Agritourism provides rural families with diversified income sources, reducing dependence on a single crop or seasonal agricultural market. By hosting visitors, offering workshops, or selling value-added products, households can stabilize their earnings and build financial resilience. This helps reduce vulnerability to price fluctuations, climate impacts, or harvest failures. Key challenges in rural economies. Agritourism also supports SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. It creates new employment opportunities not only for farmers, but also for artisans, guides, cooks, youth, and local service providers. These forms of work often rely on skills embedded in rural communities, from traditional crafts to ecological knowledge, making them accessible and culturally grounded. At the same time, agritourism encourages professionalization, training, and entrepreneurship, which contribute to rural economic dynamism. Another important connection is with SDG 12, responsible production and consumption. Agritourism exposes visitors to sustainable farming methods, such as organic agriculture, agroecology, or water-efficient irrigation, and helps build awareness around responsible consumption. Visitors gain a better understanding of food origins, resource use, and the environmental impact of agricultural systems. In turn, producers who adopt sustainable practices can appeal to environmentally conscious tourists, making responsible production both an ethical and economic advantage. Finally, agritourism directly contributes to SDG 13, climate action. Many agritourism initiatives integrate climate-smart agriculture, renewable energy, soil conservation, and low-impact land management. These practices reduce emissions, enhance ecosystem resilience, and prepare communities for climate-related risks. By sharing these practices with tourists, agritourism spreads awareness about climate challenges and demonstrates practical solutions grounded in everyday rural life. While visitors, governments, and private investors can all play important roles, it is the residents of rural areas who ultimately shape how agritourism functions and what outcomes it produces. Their direct involvement influences the authenticity of the experience, the sustainability of development, and the degree to which economic benefits are shared locally. A key piece of this is direct ownership. When tourism initiatives emerge from within the community, based on lived experience, cultural identity, and local priorities, they tend to be more authentic and meaningful. Instead of external organizations designing generic tourism products, community members create offerings that truly reflect who they are. This ensures that agritourism activities align with local values and that the economic benefits flow directly into households rather than leaving the region. The slide also emphasizes capacity building. Successful agritourism requires a wide range of skills, from hospitality management and customer service to language abilities and sustainable farming techniques. Training programs help community members develop these skills, enabling them to participate more confidently in tourism activities. And importantly, many of these skills are transferable beyond tourism, contributing to broader local development and empowerment. Another important role played by local communities is cultural stewardship. Rural residents are custodians of their own stories, traditions, and cultural expressions. They interpret local history, folklore, agricultural rituals, and seasonal events, integrating these elements into agritourism experiences. By sharing these narratives directly with visitors, communities preserve cultural heritage while offering tourists deeper, more authentic insight into rural life. Finally, also highlights environmental governance. As agritourism grows, managing environmental impacts becomes critical. Community-driven groups often take the lead in overseeing land use, protecting natural resources, and ensuring that tourism activities do not harm local ecosystems. Their involvement helps balance visitor influx with conservation priorities, maintaining ecological integrity while still welcoming tourism as a sustainable livelihood strategy. Together, these four elements, direct ownership, capacity building, cultural stewardship, and environmental governance, demonstrate why local communities are not just participants, but key decision makers in agritourism. Their engagement ensures that tourism remains authentic, equitable, and environmentally responsible. When communities are empowered to lead, agritourism becomes a model of development that strengthens local identity while simultaneously opening pathways for economic opportunity. They play a dual and central role in the success of agritourism initiatives. On one hand, they are the custodians of the land, maintaining productive farms, preserving local knowledge, and managing the agricultural activities that form the foundation of the visitor experience. On the other hand, they become interpreters, hosts, and educators who translate rural life into meaningful tourism encounters. Agricultural foundation remains the starting point. Agritourism depends on functioning farms, not staged attractions. Farming activities, whether crop cultivation, livestock care, or food processing, are what draw visitors who want to see authentic rural life. Maintaining agricultural productivity is therefore not optional. It is central to ensuring the credibility and sustainability of agritourism. Offerings beyond farming, many sites now incorporate hospitality integration. Farmers convert parts of their property into guest accommodations, tasting rooms, or educational spaces. This allows them to welcome visitors more fully and provide a complete experience that combines both learning and relaxation. Hospitality becomes an extension of agricultural work, turning farms into interactive destinations. A third role is educational storytelling. Farmers share the cultural significance behind their crops, explain traditional farming methods, and demonstrate sustainable practices. This storytelling adds depth to the visitor experience, transforming farming tasks into narratives about heritage, community, and environmental responsibility. It also helps urban visitors understand where their food comes from and why sustainable agriculture matters. Farmers are also involved in environmental management. Their knowledge of soil, water, and biodiversity guides decisions that protect ecosystems while appealing to increasingly eco-conscious travelers. Whether adopting organic methods, reducing chemical inputs, or implementing regenerative techniques, their stewardship of the land becomes part of the tourism experience. Finally, farmers engage in direct marketing. By selling products directly to visitors, such as fresh produce, artisanal goods, or processed foods, they create new revenue streams and strengthen the connection between producer and consumer. Direct marketing not only boosts farm income, but also reinforces the authenticity of the agritourism experience as visitors see and taste products grown on site. This slide highlights two stakeholder groups that play decisive roles in shaping how agritourism develops: tourists and visitors on one side, and government and policymakers on the other. While their roles differ, both groups significantly influence the direction, quality, and long-term sustainability of agritourism initiatives. Let's begin with tourists and visitors. They are not passive consumers. They actively shape the agritourism experience through their preferences, expectations, and feedback. Modern agritourism attracts a diverse audience, but many visitors fall within the 30 to 39 age range, a demographic often engaged in full-time work, but seeking meaningful escapes that align with sustainable values. These visitors are typically motivated by immersive experiences rather than simple observation. They are interested in gastronomy, agroeducation, environmental learning, and opportunities to participate directly in farm life. This demographic places a high value on authenticity, meaning they want real interactions with rural environments, genuine cultural practices, and transparent agricultural activities. Their expectations influence how hosts design experiences, how farms present their narratives, and which activities attract the most engagement. On the other side of the agritourism system are government and policymakers. Their influence often determines whether agritourism can grow successfully or whether it remains limited in scope. Policymakers create the enabling conditions that allow rural tourism to flourish. One major area of intervention is legal frameworks. By establishing zoning laws, safety standards, and environmental regulations, governments define what is possible within rural tourism spaces while protecting communities and visitors. Clear frameworks help regulate activities, manage risks, and maintain quality. Another crucial area is financial incentives. Grants, subsidies, and tax advantages can encourage farmers to diversify their income through tourism. These financial supports help reduce the risks associated with entering new markets and allow small-scale producers to invest in necessary infrastructure or training. The final intervention area is infrastructure investment. Governments play a key role in improving transportation networks, signage systems, and digital connectivity, elements that are essential for making rural locations accessible and competitive. Broadband access, for example, supports marketing efforts and digital booking systems, while well-maintained roads make rural destinations easier and safer for visitors to reach. Together, the actions of tourists and governments shape the landscape in which agritourism operates. Visitors influence demand and cultural expectations, while governments build the structural conditions that enable sustainable development. Understanding the interplay between these stakeholder groups helps us see why agritourism is both a social and policy-driven field, one that requires cooperation across multiple levels to thrive.